Alrighty, welcome back to another episode of ADHD and Crochet. I've got a few things we're going to try and work on today and probably over the next couple of weeks. But first, let's start with this little hermit crab little guy here. So this really is just two pieces. We have our little hermit crab and we have our shell. I've already stuffed it and moved the string to where it's going to be most helpful for me. We actually get to use a little bit normal sized needle this time. I think my biggest fun fact about hermit crabs is that when they get so big that there's no more shells, they kind of become coconut crabs in some cases. Coconut crabs are basically just really big hermit crabs that no longer fit in shells, which is why they have such a weird shape. This pattern was fun. It was part of a trio of a hermit crab, a more normal looking crab, and a shrimp. But they all were relatively no-sew. This is the only one that I'm choosing to sew together like this, just because he is going to be part of an art project that I'm still working on and will probably be working on for a while. His little legs want to be in the way while I do this. Now, while this was no-sew, it did have me include little beads here, little glass beads for the eyes, which is cool, interesting. Now, I have a few projects that I want to do, that I want to finish up today. And they kind of have a little bit of a story that go along with them. So I'm actually in the process of moving. We are getting packed. I'm working on it. And I've actually packed up most of my yarn. But in the process of cleaning things out and reorganizing things to try and figure out what I actually want to keep and what I can get rid of, I keep finding more yarn. Now, being the yarnaholic, this isn't necessarily surprising or necessarily a bad thing. It's just that I thought I finished packing up the majority of my yarn, and I keep finding more in places I didn't realize it was. So I'm trying to use that yarn as much as I can, because yarn is oddly easier to pack when it's in the form of a stuffed animal than it is when it's in the form of a yarn ball. And one of those yarns is a very vibrant, short variegation rainbow yarn. So you're probably going to see a lot of that over the next couple of weeks, as I try to use as much of it as I can. So we're probably going to have some bigger projects here, and I'm probably going to try and film as much as I can all at once so that you guys still have content while I am on the road. We are driving to a new state to move. We are moving out of state. I'm currently in Arizona. We're actually working on moving to Missouri because I can't stand this heat anymore. And it's actually quite nice in Missouri. But that being said, it is going to be a 3-day drive, 18 hours split up between 3 days. My needle doesn't want to cooperate. There we go. Split up between 3 days, and we will be moving 3 people and 5 animals, 4 cats and a rabbit. So there is a good chance I won't be able to make anything during that time. But there's our little hermit crab. Now the next thing is the rainbow yarn. This was going to be a Nautilus, but then I kind of realized that this kind of looked like a substance-induced trip. And I didn't really have a good way of saving it after I realized it, which was when I was basically done. So I just made it into a spiral shell pillow. Capped it off. We're going to sew this little cap here. But this is that rainbow yarn. I have a lot of this, so I am probably going to use quite a bit. I don't know why I closed that. I should keep that open. But we are just going to go around the circle, and then we will stitch the spiral shell into place, but it doesn't try to go anywhere either. I did my best to make sure that the cap was the same number of stitches around as the opening. And of course, I did not write any of the patterns of the things that I am putting together today. I will include those in the description of the videos, of course, as always. These are all done, I believe, by the same creator, Crafty Intentions. And I realized recently that that creator's name is actually Megan Lapp. Not sponsored by her, although it would be awesome if I was, because I love her patterns. They are very detailed, but very easy to follow. She actually has some pattern books out that you can get. And she's coming out with a 4th one. She has 3 out already that I absolutely adore. And I'm really excited for this 4th one to come out. So I will definitely be getting that at some point. It's mushrooms and snails. So that's fun. I know all of my videos have been sea themed lately, but I do have a special place in my heart for snails and cottagecore stuff and mushrooms. So that will be very fun, very cute. I would love for her to put all of her sea creatures in a pattern book as well, so I can have a physical copy instead of making sure that my electronics don't die, don't lose power. But everything I'm going to be working on in the next couple of projects is going to be from her, so you can expect to see her name there. All of the patterns that I've been using so far, I've gotten on Etsy under Crafty Intentions. You might be hearing Panzer in the background. He's decided to make himself known. But he has not decided to come be good and get on the table. Now I did modify this one, obviously, since I did not decide to finish the Nautilus. I just made the shell. The shell is entirely her pattern, but the little spiral was just kind of, I winged it. Little circle piece here. And as always, I have to stop every now and then to make sure my cat isn't doing something he shouldn't be, getting into places I don't want him to get, that he, of course, desperately wants to get into, because I told him no. And that is what cats do, much like children. Now the next one, I'm going to have to double check to make sure that it can actually be seen on the camera, but I may need to put a little something underneath of it so you guys can see it, because it is the black and rainbow. And I work on a black table, so that might be a little difficult to see. But we'll get there when we get there. We're just going to take our time and get through these. Now doing these outer edge was easier than doing this inner edge. Just because this spiral was not in the way of that other part. Now my box of pins is a little bit empty. I do have several projects right now that are waiting to be finished. They don't take me very long to crochet and make all the parts to, but they do take me a little bit to sew together, and I've been holding off on it all week so that I'd have content. Hook that there right now. Now this Nautilus shell is relatively heavy, because this yarn is relatively heavy. It feels like t-shirt material. It's like a beginner yarn. So it doesn't fray as easily, doesn't come apart as easily. It is quite nice to work with. It is a little thick. And the rainbow variegation is very fun. It's almost like a tie-dye but a bit wild. I've learned from working with this project that multiple colors, or at least multiple types of yarn, are kind of a good thing with this. Less is more is kind of the motto of this yarn. As you can see, it is a little much. This definitely won't be everyone's cup of tea. But that being said, it is still very fun, very bright, and we learn by doing. You don't know until you try, really. You may have noticed that I skipped a few stitches there. I did that on purpose, just so that I could get this nice and tight in that little coil there. But it kind of folds in on itself a little bit more. And then we're going to skip that stitch, go into the next one, so that we get that same effect again. Gotta hold our yarn nice and tight here. Now I like to do patterns more than once and in various colors, just because it kind of shows that every pattern is very customizable. Have just a little imagination, you can do pretty much whatever you want. If you want a pink turtle, you can do so. If you want a rainbow nautilus, you can do so. All right, we've got that nice and tight coil there, so now we're going to attach it over here. Right there. Maybe. There we go. We're just going to keep stitching that spiral closed. So now we're going to go through pretty much every stitch as we stitch each spot together. Get this gap closed nice and tight here. I will say I got used to working with the teeny tiny projects, so working with a normal sized yarn, a 0.5 or a 5 millimeter yarn, felt rather massive for a little while. So it's hard to gauge exactly how big this was going to end up being, but it is a nice throw pillow size, I think. It's not the softest yarn in the world. But it does have a nice texture. It is a very sturdy yarn. Doesn't break as easily as you pull on it, since it is kind of a woven t-shirt like material there. And I've kind of mentioned it before. I have a lot of this. The next one is black in this rainbow, and I think it looks better. I think it was a good decision to stop this one where it was. And go from there. Start over with a different idea. And sometimes you have to do that. It's okay if things don't go exactly as planned the first time. There's always room for improvement. And there's always room for mistakes. Certainly made several in these projects along the way, whether it be missed stitches or did a stitch incorrectly, didn't read the pattern properly. Whatever the case may be. But we are almost done here with this one. About 2, maybe 3 more stitches just to make sure everything is nice and tight where I want it to be. Just really closing in this little gap here. All right. So now we can make our knot. Maybe. There we go. And then hide our string. And now we have our Nautilus pillow. It definitely looks better on camera than it does in person. That's fine. All right. Now we have our black and rainbow Nautilus. I think we should be able to see it okay. All right. So first step in this is going to be sewing the spiral, and then sewing the body, then the hood, and then the eyes. So let's get him kind of taken apart here. I did have these fun sparkly rainbow eyes that I'm able to use for this one. Now this one I didn't follow the pattern exactly, just because, again, less is more. For example, the hood here, when working on it, it wants the accent color to be the main color of it, and then the main body color to be the accent color of the hood. And that seemed a little excessive with the colors I'm using, but I didn't want the lines to be drowned out either. So I did an outline that was not part of the pattern on it. Even with the body here, I did it a little differently as well. Generally, it's all one color, and it would be the main shell, main body color, which would, in this case is the black. But I decided to make the tentacles alternating black and rainbow, and I added some stripes. All right, let's go ahead and get the spiral of the shell put together. It does hold its shape rather nicely between just the shape of the pattern itself, and stuffing it nice and firm helps that as well. We're going to do kind of the same thing we did last time. We're going to skip a couple stitches and make sure we get that all nice and tight. Now this obviously is going to have more involved with it than the shell on its own. Since we have all the rest of the parts to make the creature. So this may end up being a two-part video. I believe the tiny Nautilus did, and this is quite a bit larger. Same number of stitches, but technically more yarn. So we get this all nice and tight in here. And it just kind of helps force that spiral down. We're going to add a stitch up here. My string decided to come off my needle here. Now this one does have a different texture than the other one, just because it is two different types of yarn. We have that beginner rainbow yarn, which is thicker, heavier, and has a different texture. And this black yarn is a little thinner. They do still use the same 5mm hook, but it is softer, fuzzier, and ever so slightly thinner. We're just going to keep going around like this until we reach the main opening of the shell. When showing a friend of mine this project, she thought it was really cool and called it a stained glass effect. And I think I'm going to just kind of run with that. That this is a stained glass Nautilus. You really get that effect just kind of on the edge here. You still get it a little bit on the sides, which is honestly where you're going to see the Nautilus most anyways, is from the side. That is its better angle. And I am just trying to keep this as centered as possible. Not always very possible, but I try. And I'm trying to find the best angle to see what I'm doing, and so you guys can see what I'm doing as well, which is not easy. And this one, you want a good portion of this here to be attached to the shell here. It's going to be attached to the hood as well. I kind of got to put it in a weird angle that it does not like. I'm setting it upright on a round part. But we are going to attach this opening a little bit to the shell. And one more, we can call it good on this one. I won't fasten off exactly. I will make a knot. I'm not going to disconnect the string at all. Just because I might need to use it with the body. Alright, so now with that squared away, we can pin the body in place. So this, the funnel goes on the bottom. And this main part here gets just kind of inserted in there. I like to pin it to the funnel first, because that is the center bottom of the part, of the piece. and then just kind of work my way up the shell from there. I'm going to flip it around and do the same thing, add a pin over here. And then working at that top part here, a lot of this top part is going to be covered by the hood, but I am still going to make sure it is relatively flush as well. So, looks like my mic is having some issues. Give me a moment. Okay. I think we're all good here now. I think I just need to plug some other things in. There we go. Now we're good. Alright, so we are going to start in this little corner here. And just kind of stitch along this edge. I'm going to try and go for between the loops here, just so that we have that little bit of texture between the body and the shell. Now it's kind of hard to see it just because it is mostly black with a black background and all that fun stuff. But we are going to do our best here. There's not a lot I can do about this little section here. That is one of the downsides of working with a mostly black yarn project. And we'll just keep going around here until we reach the beginning, or I guess the end. Sorry about any sniffling. I'm not ill. My allergies are just really bad because I'm allergic to the state I live in. But luckily that'll be changing soon. There we go. Now, just like with the smaller one, it does like to grab all the little tentacles here. on my yarn as I'm trying to pull through. So it adds a little bit of a challenge. All right. So while this does look like a lot of rainbow, it's still less than half the yarn used for this project. Most of the yarn used for this project is the black yarn. But as you can see what I mean by less is more with that rainbow yarn. It looks like we may just get everything pinned in place for the next video, and then we'll pick up where we left off in the next episode once we get done with just attaching the shell here to the body. That's okay. Turn this around a little bit. Now we're sewing a little more one-handed because my other hand has to hold this in place. This would probably be easier with a curved needle, but it's fine. Just needed to get past those two stitches there, 3 stitches. Now we can land flat again. Don't forget to drink your water. Gotta stay hydrated, especially in summer. Oops, got snagged a little bit there. Luckily, it seems like I stuffed the shell enough and stuffed the body enough that it is going to just hold its shape here. It does make my life a little easier because I don't have to reshape anything. I don't have to add more stuffing. Making that first one, the small one, which really just sits right in the spiral quite nicely. Really helped. And we are almost to the top here. There. Ooh, we're getting to a weird angle again. My best to keep everything in the camera. And also do my best to keep all the stuffing inside the stuffed animal. Some days that's a little more difficult than others. Alright, so we've made it to the top here. I am going to just stitch this together. It's going to be covered anyways, but it just adds a little bit of extra security. Good part about black yarn, you won't see the mistakes you make while sewing. You cannot see your stitching very well. So no one's really going to notice if it's a little bit off. They are going to notice if there's any holes. So I'm just going to use this second to tighten this hole up a little bit. Make sure that the stuffing stays inside here. Then we'll make our knot, hide our yarn, which is already kind of doing a good job of hiding itself. And snip it off. So I've left this here. I'm still going to leave it there. We may use it for some shaping on the hood. We'll find out. If I don't, I'll just cut it off. But let's go ahead and take a look at the hood now. Get my string into a proper position. Now there will be a lot of pins involved in this one, just to make sure I get the shape where I want it to be. We're going to start up here and use this black pin on the rainbow here. Make sure that I've got this correctly placed. We're going to pin this side this, touching that little stripe there. We're going to pin this side the same way so that it's touching this second stripe here. And then we're going to put a little stuffing under there. And we will shape this later. It just kind of helps for now. We have this little arch here. This part gets tucked under, and then this little flap gets folded like that. Now we just kind of poke some pins in there, keep everything in place. This little spot will be shoved, we will be shoving an eye in there, so it will be covered. Now we gotta turn it around. Our string is on this side, so move that out of the way. Tuck this little guy under here, like so, and curve it under like that, just like the other one. Pin it down in place. Seems pretty good at the moment. Make sure everything is even. And we'll just kind of hold this in place like that. And I have an extra pin. Beautiful. We will go ahead and call that one good, call this video good here, and we will pick up where we left off next time. In sewing this whole hood on, sewing the eyes on, making sure everything is where it needs to be. And potentially moving on to additional videos after, or additional projects after that. But until next time, I hope you liked the video. If you do, go ahead and drop me a like. Subscribe if you want more content. And I'll see you guys in the next one.